Well, welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 75. I am your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we are excited to have with us the highly talented and acclaimed cartoonist and illustrator, Ben Wright Heuman. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. And you're here to chat with us about your latest Kickstarter, Less Than Secret, huh?
That is correct. This is my first time running an anthology. Funny story, the last anthology I worked on before this was yours. And about half, I did the story for yours, and shortly thereafter, I actually came up with an idea for a longer running project. I ran it by one of my friends, cartoonist Rainer Kannenstein. And it turns out he'd had a similar idea for a project. So we've been planning. It's a longer form thing that I can't really talk about too much, but one of the big things is we haven't even run an anthology before, and that would be kind of the base level of skill that we'd need. Right. So we started talking about, okay, let's plan an anthology. What do we want to do with it? So we brought in a bunch of the random creators we know, came up with a theme, cryptids, and put together Less Than Secret, which is 7 stories. And the entire pitch for it was you have 12 pages, black and white. Give us a story about cryptids.
Right.
And yeah, it's been kind of a crazy trip. Like, you've read anthologies, you know it's completely nuts.
Right. So yeah, before we just jump in and do a deep dive on on the Kickstarter, which is congratulations, it's you've reached your goal 3 times over right at this point.
Yeah, we reached our goal, which was 1,500, in 5 hours.
Wow.
It was a crazy day.
Yeah. So as you mentioned before, what was it like to, for the artists and illustrators and some of the comic book writers and the authors that listen and watch the podcast? Like, what would you say that was the benefit of organizing and participating in an anthology series as compared to some of your solo works? As we say, Ben, I'm a fan of your stuff. I got your
thank you
here, so I got what compared to doing your own work solo, it's just you and your pencil and your I was gonna say typewriter, you and your you and as saying organizing, almost like a conductor, pulling in different people and facilitating. What are some of the benefits and drawbacks of both of those types of projects?
Well, I think the big thing is a lot less, weirdly less of the pressure is on you when you're running it, because you end up delegating a lot. And I was doing this, I wasn't the only organizer. Rainer was the other one. Both of us were kind of sharing a lot of the load, bouncing ideas off each other. And in a lot of ways, we put this project together so much faster than if I were just doing it solo. Each of the books you just showed took me a couple years to make.
Right.
And I did Kickstarters, and everything was being done on my own. I was promoting it myself. I was doing all the writing, all the art. And in this, I had to write and draw 12 pages. And the rest has been sales, which I'm one of those people who doesn't like doing sales, but I can do it. And it's been interesting because, like we said, this Kickstarter we funded in 5 hours. My last Kickstarter for the Letters of the Devil 2 was for $2,000, not $1,500. And it took me 30 days to hit that amount. On the 30th day of the Kickstarter, we finally hit that goal. And if you can do it faster, I recommend it, because it's a lot less stressful. But yeah, we've had everybody able to contribute in various ways. We're doing interviews with everybody. There's a very talented cartoonist out here in Ohio who's part of the project, Kelsey Crawford. And they've been interviewing everybody, 2 interviews a week on their YouTube channel. And we've been able to get word out about everybody from that.
Right. Yeah. And I'm watching some of Kelsey's stuff. Yeah. This past week, it's been really interesting. It's cool that she's, as you said, she's pulling in all the contributors, the writers and the artists. And it's been fun watching those interviews.
Yeah. And they're an incredible interviewer. Definitely someone to keep an eye out for. They just completed a Kickstarter of their own,
Okay.
The Legend of Jamie Roberts, and is constantly putting out work. They're one of my big freelancer buddies out here.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did with this project also that's a little bit different than any anthology I've worked on before is we really tried to get everybody involved in the process. Like, we have a Discord chat where we're all constantly communicating. We have completely voluntary sit downs every other Saturday where we basically just meet up and talk about stuff. It doesn't even have to be about the project. And that was really helpful this past year.
Right. So when did you, because, as you mentioned, it was, you and Rainier get together, you came up with the idea to do a larger project, but decided this is kind of your stepping stone. Like, let's just try this out first to see how good we are at it. Right.
Yeah.
Is that now, when did that conversation happen? So talk about timeline. Is you decided to do cryptids. Was that 6 months ago, 1 year ago, 2 years ago? How did this, give us a timeline on this?
It was definitely during lockdown. I want to say that we started talking about the larger idea in late May, early June, something like that.
Okay.
Funny thing is, I came up with the idea and messaged Rainer, because Rainer is one of those people who knows everything about comics, and said, "Do you know if anyone's tried this?" And Rainer said, "Funny thing, I came up with a business model for this like 3 months ago and thought about asking you, and then was like, nah, I can't pull this off." So we had basically the same idea,
right?
Pretty close to each other. We decided to do the anthology June or July and started inviting people, I want to say in August. We were kind of cautious with a lot of it. A couple of the people who were involved in this project that we brought on early, part of the reason we brought them on early is they have experience with anthologies and with Kickstarters. Right. So we wanted to talk to them and say, what are we doing? What do we need to do this right?
Right.
One thing that I learned and ended up being very true, and I thought it was kind of funny. One of the first people we brought on was Angela Boyle, who's actually getting interviewed this Saturday. And she's run an anthology called Awesome Possum. I think she's done 4 volumes of it.
Wow.
And one of the first things she told me is, when you guys set deadlines, be aware that those deadlines are going to get missed. Like, a lot of people are not going to make their deadlines. And what was crazy about it, like we were thinking, okay, we're going to give 12 pages each. We're giving people 3 months. We should be able to get most of the people to get stuff in. And I think 2 stories were completed on time, and neither Rainer's nor mine were among them. Like, even the people running the project couldn't stay on time. Yeah. And this was a crazy year. It happens, but it was just kind of funny because one of the best pieces of advice we got was be ready for deadlines to be missed.
So, and I know when we worked at, you had a really good contract written up. You're like, boom, 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 this and this and this, and then like, here's an addendum, we'll throw that in there. At what point, like, if you're facilitating that, and did you have contracts in place for all your contributors?
I will start by saying this: if you run an anthology, have a good contract in place at the beginning. We got the contract to them right before the Kickstarter started. We were way behind on that. That is very bad. Don't do that. But yeah, that's one of those things where we were like trying to figure out how to write a contract. The contract, I forget again. Do we use my contract or do we use? Oh yeah, we used my contract for part of it, okay, because I was doing some extra freelance thing. That's specifically like a work for hire contract that I put together. That's really easy to format for a lot of stuff. It's a little weird setting it up for an anthology. So what we ended up doing was, again, Angela sent us the contract for Awesome Possum, and we figured out how to adapt that. But yeah, we got that out way late. And if it weren't for the fact that I was working with people that reasonably trusted us, because we pretty much knew everybody, probably wouldn't have done it that way, because there's a certain level of trust you have to have with this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Now it's so with that said, I mean, how just in general speaking, how much work did you have to put in advance being with your name on the anthology, and how much work did you do on behalf of your contributing artists? Like, did you like send me? Did you have to do any like finishers on there, or did you have to like putting everything together in a thing to make sure it was kind of cohesive and kind of had a specific flow to it? Or
well, for the most part, we haven't been doing that. One of our other contributors, Ariane McCrae, is the book designer, and she's been responsible for putting it together. We figured out what the order should be, and we know some of the stuff that's going to go in there. Very much like when you and I worked together, because I helped do book design on your anthology. The order is already there, just figuring out what else is going to go into it and how we make that happen.
Right. And also too, they have it comes with it's 7 stories. Now, was that an arbitrary number, or did you say, all right, if it's going to be 12 pages each, it's going to be this? So, or how did that come? Or is that was just based off of the people that your connections that you handpicked responded to that? How did that work?
I won't name names here, but we invited 12 people originally. 10 said yes. And of those 10, 6 completed stories, and we got one more person to join partway in. So that's just kind of how it works out.
Okay.
One of the other things with doing an anthology is you are going to have people who say they'll do it and then aren't able to do it. It happens, like especially when you're trying to come up with something out of the ether. It can be really tough.
Yeah, and then do you find it works better to, as you say, to work with people because then it's kind of hard to hold them accountable if they kind of slip away, especially if you have a contract in place, or finding people, strangers that you haven't met and say, here's the deadline, boom, 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 boom. Like, what would you recommend for folks doing this?
I'm glad we went with people we knew for the first one, because that did make the pressure a little bit less. There were definitely some people that were new to either Rainer or me. Like Kelsey's an example. Rainer doesn't know Kelsey, or didn't before this. But I was like, I know Kelsey, and Kelsey would be very valuable on this. I trust them. Let's bring them in.
Right.
And there are a few people from Rainer's class. There are a few people from. We did have a bit of a variety there. We also ended up getting an editor through Kelsey that neither Rainer or I knew, named JD. And that's another thing I'd recommend for people doing an anthology. Have someone separate do the editing, because it saves you a lot of headache. And then we also have one story by Ian Klesch and Andrew Small. Those are just friends of mine from out here. And they were actually interesting because they'd never done a published work before. I just happened to know them, and they'd wanted an opportunity to break in, and it's kind of funny. They independently had come to me saying, I'm getting kind of stir crazy in my house. Do you have any projects you want to work on? And they did this like within a couple of days of each other. I'm like, you guys should talk. And so they ended up joining the project and putting out a great story. But yeah, so we kind of had a mix of people that we really know well and people that were kind of brought in based on the recommendations of others. And if we were to do another project, I'd honestly be pretty interested in opening it up more.
Right.
It's tough because I also want to work with everybody on this project again, but I also think it'd be cool to bring in fresh blood.
So do you see, because of the success of the Kickstarter, do you see that you're going to do like a part 2 to this, or is there going to be like something with maybe aquatic creatures, or doing something where like a theme, a running theme, or just sticking with just cryptids in general?
We're 100% going to do more anthologies. I don't know about subject matter. Rainer and I have talked about it a little bit. The main thing is we've really had a great time doing this, so we want to do more of them. But what the actual subject's going to be is going to be a little bit open. Part of the thing with cryptid is Rainer and I didn't pick that. We brought it up with the group, like, what do you guys want to do? And someone said cryptids, and everyone got excited. So we went with cryptids. We were kind of more the formatting restrictions than anything else, because we wanted to see how doing these particular format rules would work.
Okay. And what were the format restrictions that you put in place?
Let's see. The pages are 5.5 by 8.25, which is slightly smaller than half letter. It's actually it's sort of the imperial closest to, I want to say A4 or A5, which is a metric sized paper.
Huh.
It's a size that a lot of mangas printed in and stuff like that. I can actually show you. So I was doing a dummy for the book sleeves that we're selling for the special editions.
Right.
And this is about the size of one of those books. I was using a Junji Ito book for it.
Okay.
So yeah. We had that. It was going to be 12 pages. We required grayscale. And the only content restrictions was we said we were shooting for roughly PG-13. Just because if you give cartoonists enough leeway, you never know what's going to happen. But we basically just said that so we'd have an excuse if we're like, this is just inappropriate. We're not going to be able to sell this to a general audience.
That's awesome. So
yeah,
so
that was about it.
Okay, all right. So let's jump in and just check out. Let's just go through the walk us through the Kickstarter here. So, as we say, that's awesome. You hit you're knocking on 5,000 and 10 days to go. So you're 2/3 the way through. So as you mentioned, so if you want to, let's go through the tiers that you had, the pledge levels you have on here.
Sounds good. Well, first off, you mentioned we're near 5,000. We are doing a stretch goal system where, just because we've made our base goal, what all that means for anyone who hasn't done Kickstarter is that we're getting paid.
Yeah.
If you don't hit the base goal, you make no money. Everybody gets refunded. You go home with nothing. But the basic way we're doing this is the more money we can raise with the Kickstarter, the higher page rates we can pay our contributors. Your anthology was part of a business, so it was you had a decent nest egg. You were actually able to pay us reasonable rates. We cannot do that yet. So the deal we made at the outset was, as long as the Kickstarter gets funded at $1,500, every creative team will get $10 a page, which is really low.
Right.
That is way below what this type of thing should be, but that's sort of the starting rate. The thing is, the more money we make on the Kickstarter, the higher we're paying people.
Right.
So we hit 5,000. I believe at that point we'll be at $20 a page, and every 1,000 beyond that's another $5. So however high we can get it.
Wow.
That's basic. That's our most basic version of that goal.
Right.
So actual reward tiers, by the way, all the names were just because I like fun names. Most basic level is just for people who want to donate a little bit. Well, at the very least, you'll get credit in our book. $7 will send you a PDF. By the way, every level past this with the physical books, you at least get a PDF.
Okay.
So you'll always get a copy of the book in some form. And if you get physical, you'll get both. $20 is the paperback edition.
And how many pages is it?
It's looking like it's going to be 108. We haven't put together, 112.
Okay.
We haven't finished putting together the file, but that's roughly what we're estimating. It'll be right around there.
And that's a great price, $20 for a graphic novel over 100 pages.
And that's with shipping included in the U.S.
Wow. Okay.
We are unfortunately not doing anything internationally right now because shipping's gotten a little complicated, but we are planning on making the book available after we're able to get everything put together.
Okay.
Then beyond that, at 50, this is where it starts getting interesting because we're going to have hardcover editions of the book.
Okay.
First time I've had hardcovers of my stuff. I'm kind of excited about that.
And where are you getting those? What publishing? What printing place are you utilizing for that?
We're currently looking at a printer called Mixam, M-I-X-A-M.
Okay.
Actually, here, I'll put it in the chat just so.
Yeah.
Because that's got a couple letters in it that don't translate very well.
Okay.
But what it does, they are a US-based printer that has a lot of different options, including offset printing which for people not in the know basically means you can print a ton of books for a lot cheaper.
Right.
And their hardcover rates are pretty inexpensive, so I figured I'd go for it. It's we're also going to do at the $100 level those hardcovers. I'm going to be making handmade book sleeves for them.
Wow.
Sample of that. The dummy for it right here.
Yeah.
And the very top level, 800, we have a fun thing that Angela Boyle is doing. Angela did a version of this for her last Kickstarter, Awesome Possum. It's a cabinet of curiosity with a mix. On hers, it's a mixture of actual natural science things and kind of goofy things. This is going to be more cryptid themed, so most of it would probably be goofy, but she puts together an entire spice rack basically with this stuff, like hand making some of the individual pieces and stuff like that. It's a really, really cool tier.
That's awesome. Have you had no one? You got 5 of those. No one's back. No one's jumped.
No one's done it yet.
Yeah.
One of the other things I'd recommend for people when you're doing a Kickstarter, have at least one tier that's really, really like top of the line. It doesn't matter if anyone backs it because it'll mean a lot more people back the one right below it.
Okay.
But even if one person backs this, that jumps us a lot.
Right. And I want to just to point out here, and I think this is important to say, even though this is fun and $800, this actually is art. So you're actually buying like that. That's artwork.
Yeah, this is a commitment. Like, there's a reason Angela's only doing 5 of them because she's like that. That's crazy. She's also doing commissions, which is one of the other things we're offering.
Right. Wow. Cool. So yeah, let's look at that. Yeah. So these are the add-ons, and talk to us a bit about like, was this something that was just kind of you and Rainer kind of decided on, or is this something that you had the entire group kind of like democratizing the idea of what the add-ons would be?
The entire group was involved in this.
Okay.
Rainer and I ended up having final say, but it's one of those things where, and also like pricing, that's one of the things that was coming up because, or we were talking about all the tiers and trying to figure out what would work and what wouldn't. Book plate stickers, that came from other people. I actually wasn't familiar with book plate stickers particularly because it's not something I typically get on Kickstarters myself, but we had a team of people. So we actually had other people telling me when I'm wrong, which is great.
So what is a book plate? I'm not familiar with that either.
So there are a couple different versions. That's part of where it got confusing. A lot of Kickstarters use it just to say it's a sticker that goes in the front of the book that has an illustration on it that one of the artists made. But traditionally, it's one of those stickers that you put in to write in like property of blank and that kind of thing. And so what we're kind of shooting for, like we're still figuring out a little bit if we're going to have them. What we're kind of thinking about doing is having some that are either way, and then you can actually pick.
Right.
But we have already, actually, here, I can share a screen on this. I can show one that I designed.
Okay.
Actually did this on a live stream the other day on my channel. And share.
All right. Let's see here. There it is. All right. Here we go. Oh, wow. Okay. And then they would write down, and that would be the empty spot right there. Is this, so let me ask you then, Ben, is this digital or this hand drawn?
This is digital. I did it all in Clip Studio.
Okay.
Funny thing, it turns out everyone in the group except one person went all digital on their project.
Oh, really?
It wasn't originally how it was going to work out. There are other people doing traditional, and I've also done traditional stuff in the past. You brought up my letters books. Those are kind of half and half, but
okay.
Like they had a lot of traditional work into them. This was 100% digital.
So let me ask you, as a creative, do you see, because that you've seen like just the success that your anthology series turned out, looking at it from a business perspective, is this going to hamper any of your project ideas that you're going to do solo projects on? Because you mentioned like your book 2 took so long to get funded. Are you now worried that from a business, like a business perspective, that you might move more towards doing more anthologies instead of solo projects?
It's not something I'm so much worried about. I think it's one of the things that's going to be a much bigger part of what I do because I really liked it and it was really good for my creative process.
Okay.
Because honestly, like I've been periodically trying to write the next Letters book, and I've been having a lot of trouble really getting that started. Part of it was last year was nuts.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to get your head around anything other than that. I was able to keep my webcomic going, but that's because I had a deadline that I was kind of obligated for every week, and that really helped me stay on task. Plus, I really like that webcomic. But I found this project so ridiculously rewarding. I still do. Like, it's still going on. It's going to keep going on until we actually print it and start selling it, outside of the Kickstarter. That I absolutely see myself doing this more often. And I see myself participating in more anthologies. Your anthology was the first one I'd actually worked on in a very long time. And I forgot how nice it is to do that kind of freelance work.
Right. So going back to this, let's look at, you have here your, oh, sorry, there we go. Your reward tiers. So, so these are this. So for $30, the physical commission, you would do a physical commission here.
That's right. We have 3 people doing physical commissions.
Okay.
With the commissions, we kind of split in a weird way.
Okay.
Because some people were working physical and some people were working traditional. And we were also experimenting with the add-on system, which is brand new to Kickstarter. None of us had worked on it.
Right.
And so we weren't sure if it would be better to have commissions on one or the other. So we kind of did both. Like all the physical stuff is being done as an actual reward tier. You get a digital copy of the book, and then you get this. So like this is the main thing you're getting.
Right.
And then everything, all the digital ones, you can add on to any other tier if you want to.
Okay.
So we kind of did it as an experiment, half and half, to see what would happen. For physical tiers, I've been messing around a lot with graphite wash for spooky artwork and things like that. Are you familiar with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Yes, that
artist. This is what I'm pretty sure he was using.
Wow. Okay.
And so I've been playing with it, and I absolutely love doing it. Actually, I've got, where are they? A couple of illustrations I recently did for another live stream. One of the things that we're doing as a promotion is a Draw This in Your Style challenge.
Okay.
Where we, one of our people, Andrew Small, did an illustration of his Cryptid the Rougarou, and we all had to do it in our own style. So I did one using this method.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And also just because I had extra time on the stream, because it's actually a pretty quick but messy method.
Right.
But yeah, you can get something like this as my physical commission. We also have a watercolor one from Angela Boyle, and Kelsey has a really cool one that is sort of this monster silhouette illustration.
Okay,
yeah, if you scroll down, you'll get an idea of what the art styles look like. And so far, a few of the physical commissions have gone. Like we've actually had, they're not completely sold out, but we've definitely had people picking them up. Digital, I feel a little bad because we haven't been getting a lot of bites on this stuff, even though it's awesome. I'm worried the add-on system might be a problem, but if you guys want this stuff, grab it because it's all available. And it's awesome. Like that's Andrew Small doing an illustration in kind of a watercolor style, and you'll basically just get the digital file with this.
Right.
You have Ariane McCrae doing character design stuff. By the way, that's digital. Can you believe that?
What's the, and then you just there, and they would get those, was it 300 DPI or larger than that?
I don't know if any of the creators specified resolution, but that's probably what we'd send it at.
Right. Okay.
And Rainer is also doing them using basic character designs, and yeah, it's awesome stuff.
And then how did the early bird specials go? Did you get
Incredibly well. Like, that's one of those things I would also recommend for anyone running a Kickstarter. I'd never done early bird specials before, but I know other people who had. I decided to try it, and you can actually see the numbers change dramatically as soon as the early bird specials expired.
right?
We got just shy of $4,000 in that first week, and a big part of that was early bird specials.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
One of the things that's been weird about this Kickstarter, so this is my third Kickstarter, and the way it usually goes is you have a big boost at the beginning, a big boost at the end, and in the middle, you're barely getting any movement.
Right.
So you may go for 30 days, and out of those 30 days, 15 of those days, nothing happens. And on a bunch of the other days, you get one backer. Including today, we have never had a day go by where we didn't get a backer.
Wow.
I've never seen that in one of my projects. It's crazy. It's great. We love it. And one of the other things that's been really interesting, because we get to see all these numbers, almost half of the traffic we've gotten have been people just discovering us in Kickstarter.
Wow. So
like, it wasn't even people we brought in with our advertising.
That was going to be my question for you, was like, what have you discovered that you're doing really well, and what have you saw through the advertising? What are the things that when you're sitting around in your planning sessions to say, oh, we have to do X really well, or do it, or whatever that thing is, and you turned out that it had no legs on it whatsoever for you?
Honestly, the big thing was the initial push, because, I mean, first off, no one was expected to keep up the momentum for an entire 30 days. We'd all burn out.
Right.
I'm keeping up the momentum because I'm one of the people in charge. I've basically been posting stuff to social media every day. I'm sure people are sick of me. But with one of the big tricks with Kickstarter is the more you can demonstrate that you're popular, the more they will promote you. On my last Kickstarter, I think 20% of my traffic came from people on Kickstarter discovering my project. And now it's 49%. And a part of that is we made goal in 5 hours. We've kept a consistent, like, at least several backers a day,
right,
for the entire time. That makes Kickstarter's algorithm say, this is a popular project, they're worth giving more attention to.
Was that deliberate to keep your goal as low as you could, to make sure to kind of hope you'd hit it? Because as you said, if your first book, the book you did was just you, but you made your goal 2,000, where this one you have a group of folks that you made the goal 1,500.
Our original goal that we've been talking about was about 3,000. Okay. And we really thought, we're thinking about getting it lower because we were worried we wouldn't be able to hit 3,000.
Yeah.
There was that legitimate fear, and when that happened, no one got paid, right, which, like, Rainer and I were really worried about. So we talked about 1,500. We were looking at a lot of variables. We even I brought this up. I don't want this on Rainer. This was me. But I brought up the possibilities, like, can we see if people would be open to be paid $5 a page, just so we can do less? And I really didn't want to do that because we told everyone $10 originally. Right. It was like, would people be interested in that? And we ended up doing the math, and we realized that if we did the absolute bare minimum, we could pay everyone except Rainer and me, and do $10 a page. Right. And, like, still do the base page rate that we'd promised. The catch would be we would hang on to any additional copies so that we could try to recoup some costs by selling those. Right. And, like, we were really worried that even 1,500, it's like, that's going to, like, we'll probably make 1,500, but it'll take a week. That was sort of our thinking. Like, it'll take a while. If we're lucky, we'll get it done in a week. And then it happened in 5 hours, and we're like, oh, wow, should we have asked for 3,000? And increasingly what we were thinking about is, no, this was the perfect amount because we got to say we finished in 5 hours. Right. What was really crazy is that day, because for the launch, we actually had a live stream that had everybody in the project on it. Wow. So all 9 of the people who'd gone into the book. And so we did that video, and by the end of the video, we were past the halfway point, and the rest of the day we were getting messages in the Discord with everyone updating, like, we're up to 800, we're up to 900, what's happening?
I mean, and one of the and one I think also ways you mentioned, one of the benefits of doing an anthology is that just means there's more people to help promote the project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that, credits where it's due, I think a lot of the backing that we got early on came from our editor, JD, because JD seems to have a very good Twitter game. And posting on Twitter seemed to, I don't know exactly where it came from on Twitter, but JD's tweets seem to have a lot of response, and we have a lot of numbers saying that we did get people from Twitter.
Wow. Okay.
So it does seem to be that, certain, everyone's been contributing in different ways. We've had 2 people do art challenges. I showed the Draw This in Your Style challenge. We also have a coloring page challenge that Angela did. We've got those kind of floating out in the ether.
Right.
It's been really interesting. Kelsey, of course, doing the interviews. That's been the other big thing. They're live streaming twice a week to do that. Using the same streaming program you are, by the way. Like, we're all doing that.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Streamers are it's a great project. It's a great product. I love it.
Yeah.
So talk to us again about just for those that are watching or listening to this, is that so as of this live recording, it's got 10 days to go, and so it ends then on, was it May 1st or May 2nd?
It ends on May 3rd, actually.
May 3rd. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So May 3rd, 2021, that's when it's going to end. And so those that are listening to this on a podcast a year from now, we'll probably be talking about volume 2, right?
Hopefully, yeah. At the very least, if you go here, you'll find out where you can buy the book.
Right. So what can people expect out of this? We said it's 7 stories, 7 things. Who's the audience? Who's the audience for this?
It's an excellent question, actually. Cryptid fans, for one. I would say we were generally shooting for accessible by, I'd say 13 plus is fair. I think there's a lot of interesting indie content. One thing that was really funny, because Rainer and I both kind of were thinking horror when we were coming up with our stories. We're the only 2 like straight up horror stories in the entire thing. There's comedy, there's slice of life, there's magical realism. There's a real mix of genres in there, and all of it is good. Like, it's one of the things that was really fun is figuring out the order for the stories. Like, we were bouncing around a few ideas. But it's like we start with the magical realism story that Kelsey did, because it was sort of the best setting expectations thing that this could be anything in some ways.
Okay.
We didn't want to start with comedy because we didn't want everyone to think every story is going to be comedy. Actually, that picture you just brought up with Angela's story, that's one of the ones I'm personally most excited about, because it's a prose and comic fusion. I'm trying to remember the name of the artist that she referenced for it, because there's another cartoonist that does this kind of thing. And she was like, I really want to do a story in this style. But yeah, she did a mystery set in the German woods featuring these characters, and it's got a mix of prose and comics. That's something to check out, Kelsey's interview with Angela when it happens this Saturday. But I'm sure she'll mention the artist at that point. But it's just such an interesting idea. That's from the first story, the next image. That's Kelsey's magical realism thing with the Mothman.
A Day in the Life of Mothman. That's pretty cool.
It's a good title.
Yeah.
There's actually a great little moment in there that I originally thought was a mistake, and I talked to Kelsey, and they were like, "Nope, that's exactly what I meant to have happen." And I'm like, "That's awesome." But yeah, they have the title as the billboard on the first page that has a picture of the Mothman on it, and later in you see the billboard again, and the Mothman's gone. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! If that was meant to be." Yeah, here is actually the last story in there, Emo's Christmas. by Jess Johnson, who got interviewed today on Kelsey's channel.
Okay.
And this is fun because it's basically a typical New Jersey family where the weird aunt for Christmas brings home her new boyfriend, the Jersey Devil. Like, it's a really fun, funny, and kind of heartwarming story. It's a lot of fun. We put it at the end because it kind of was a perfect way to wrap up everything.
Okay.
This is Raiders with the Dover Demon. Very much, if you're into EC Comics style horror, that's kind of the feel you get out of this one.
Okay.
If you're not familiar, that's Tales of the Crypt and things like that.
Right.
Really fun, really spooky. I remember Rainer talked about the fact that the entire reason he picked this is because the images he found of the Dover Demon made him really uncomfortable. So he's like, I'm just going to draw him over and over again. That's a perfect reason to do that.
Right.
Here we have one of the other funny stories by Ian Klesch and Andrew Small. They're the only team that worked on this. Ian was the writer, Andrew was the artist. Both new to having stuff published, and they've been fantastic to work with. Hire them. But yeah, it's Rougarou catfished by a dog person, which is all about a Rougarou, which is kind of it's a dog person, using a dating site. Yeah. JD, I mentioned before, was the editor that got brought in. And so JD was working as an editor in part because his hand had gotten injured earlier in the year. But by the time we were getting ready for the Kickstarter, it had healed enough. He was like, I really want to draw something for you guys. And he made the cover, which we love so much that we're selling as a poster.
I love it. It's his artwork kind of reminds me of the Berenstain Bears hand. It looks like something from.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as he started sending us proofs of that, we're like, this is awesome.
That is a great cover. Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of the other comedy stories by Ariane McRae, featuring the Fresno Nightcrawler. And the whole idea is, how can you be scary when all you are is a ball with legs?
Right. And then, of course, and then yours.
Oh, then there's mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the advantage of having a W as the first letter in your last name is you're usually the last but not least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went for fantasy Western because why not?
Right.
And I'm focusing on the Chupacabra, kind of a story of sort of the classic prairie family trying to survive an attack by coyotes, except instead of coyotes, it's chupacabras, and the protagonists are an elf and an orc and their kid. Funnily enough, I actually wasn't going to be the only Western story, but unfortunately one person had to bow out.
Right. Wow.
But yeah, like, we've got a pretty wide range of stories we're covering. I'll tell you, with mine, it was one of the most refreshing projects I've worked on in a long time, because if you've worked on one or two things for a very long time, getting to do anything different feels amazing.
Right.
Yeah, this is the first story I told that wasn't Cost Pain or Letters of the Devil.
Right. Wow. I mean, so those that are like into like the horror cryptid genre, this is a perfect thing to get. If you have friends and family this is being released. So around holidays, they could, like, the physical rewards would be around the holiday time, or
we're shooting to have, like, the date we put down was August for having the physical copy sent out to people.
Right.
Which I'm hoping is enough time. Every project I've done before, it's taken a little bit longer, but I allowed more time than I usually do.
Right.
And last year didn't count. Like, you were trying to get a book printed last year. It was nuts.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this year it's going to be a lot easier. Plus, we're working with a different printer. We're going to see how that goes.
Right.
But we're pretty close to having everything put together. Oh, one name that kind of hasn't been brought up a lot in this, because we're still finalizing some of the details, but we're hoping to have Steve Bissett write the introduction.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We're in the final stages of that, and I think it's fair to go ahead and mention it. But yeah.
Yeah. No, he's another Vermont guy right here too.
Yeah.
So,
we're like, half of these people used to be his students, and it's also involving cryptids. So it seems appropriate to ask Steve if he'd be up for it.
Right.
Yeah. We're hoping to have the final paperwork done on that, but it's not premature to say that.
Right. That's awesome. So this is great. So congratulations, Ben, and your team. I think you all have put together an amazing anthology. Really excited to see what happens next. So as you said, and everybody, the excitement on there. It seems as though people are excited to do this again. Like, the momentum is it's still moving forward.
Yeah, at least a few of the people have said that they're doing the thing where they're refreshing the Kickstarter page every couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I've basically told them, don't do that. Only I need to be doing that. But yeah, like a few people are like, this is so exciting. Is it always this exciting? And I'm like, kind of. It's usually more stressful than it has been this time.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's funny because I always assumed that if I had a Kickstarter that got back this quickly, I'd completely relax. And instead, I'm like, let's see how much higher we can get this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a lot of energy with it. There's been a lot of people volunteering to do extra stuff,
right?
Which has been exciting. And yeah.
So, was there a reason why I don't want to call them the A-list cryptids, like there's no Bigfoot, there's no Loch Ness monster? Was that deliberate? It's looking for like some of the more obscure cryptids to write about?
It was a little bit of a mix. I think we actually did have someone lined up to do Bigfoot. That is one of the people who dropped out. But one of actually in the Fresno Nightcrawler story by Ariane, she features a couple extra of the big cryptids, just so they're acknowledged. Like Bigfoot makes an appearance, Nessie does. There's the Gillman, which is basically the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Right.
But yeah, I think for the most part, people are just like, let's pick a weird one, because everybody does these other ones. I picked Chupacabra, which is pretty normal.
Right.
I know Kelsey picked the Mothman because they lived on the Kentucky border for a long time, and that's exactly where Mothman sightings happened a lot.
Yes, that's true. That was
yeah.
I was reminded of that because one of our viewers from the Daily Dan blog, he actually does a YouTube channel about hunting Bigfoots, and he also does comic book reviews. So he's a guy he's a fun guy to check out. But that's interesting. So I'm really curious because this is there's so much resource in cryptids. There's so much stuff going on here, and also was it also deliberate to make them all more North American-esque cryptids? It's compared to other parts of the world, or?
I think to some degree that's just what people found that was interesting.
Right.
Angela's is a German cryptid, the Elwitritzk. I might not be pronouncing that correctly.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
We also originally had someone who ended up having to drop out, who was going to do an East Indian cryptid.
Okay.
But yeah, and technically the Chupacabra is Puerto Rican, which is still American, but not what most people would tend to think of.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's I think it was mostly just we all pretty much went to the wiki page and it's like, what are cryptids? Like, what's a list? Just trying to find something that looked interesting.
Wow, this is great. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I did Chupacabra because the setting I was working on is actually a Dungeons and Dragons setting I'm working on, and I'd statted the Chupacabra for it. So I'm like, this is a good opportunity.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ben, this is great. So thank you very much for coming on, and please, anytime that you want, like you're doing another anthology, doing anything else, Letters to the Devil Part 3. Yeah, man, come back on. This has been great.
Yeah, I'd love to do another letters book. I actually know exactly what I want to do with it. I just need to sit down and write it. Yeah,
Good.
that series is not dead. I just need to take time to figure out how I'm going to do it.
Right. Well, this only came out last year. I mean, it's so right.
Yeah,
it was just last year. Yeah.
And one of the things that's funny about any of these books, when you're actually doing a full graphic novel like that, you're looking at several years of work, and by the time you're done, it's practically outdated.
Right.
Like it's funny because I really try not to date my work too much, but there's a reference in the second book, The Legacy of L, to the 2016 election, because I was just like, this particular group of people, I can't, like, this is the exact best way I can possibly have for them to have met.
Right.
Like, outside of an election party losing their minds.
Yeah.
Like, but like, other than that, I was like, I almost don't want to do this because it dates it too much. And then as soon as I was done, I was like, yeah, this feels more dated than I'd want because I've been working on this for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good. So congratulations again on reaching your goal. Really excited to, check this anthology out. And congratulations again, and congratulations to all your contributors too. So
thank you.
yeah, then I don't know if I told, but I love your Instagram site with your cospain.
Oh, thank you.
Comics. Those where do you come? Are you looking forward to conventions again when they pop back up?
Yes, I am. I really need cons to come back. I've been going off of backlogged material for a year, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, and one of the craziest things about it, like the 200 strip is coming up.
Wow.
And my last con was over a year ago.
Wow.
It was like 13 months ago, I think. And the other thing is, cons never stopped in my comic. Like, despite the fact that no in-person cons have really happened over the last year, they kept going like nothing happened. And it's kind of getting tough to figure out how to deal with that. Like, I actually wrote this really existential comic that I thought about doing, where one of the people has a nervous breakdown and realizes that they've been in their house for an entire year and just have been making this whole thing up. And then it would just like pull out to me drawing the comic, looking at it, going, nah, delete, new comic.